come to order, please? It's indeed a pleasure for me to serve as temporary chairman and call this meeting to order officially. Second Annual Committee on Political Education of the State of Mississippi. First, I would like to introduce to you the Reverend Guy Reedy, pastor of the Highland Baptist Church here in Laurel, who will bring us a few words of inspiration and edification for the morning. Brother Reedy.
I'm going to ask that you be seated because I want to read a passage of Scripture before I have my prayer, please. I'll let you stand because I thought you looked like you might need the exercise at this time. Our passages of Scripture are brief, but I'd like to call your attention to both Old and New Testament passages, if you please. From the 5th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, it is recorded in verses 13 and 14, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In the life of Moses, the servant of the Lord, there was a time when God said to Moses, "What dost thou have in thy hand?" And Moses said, "I have a rod." And God said, "Cast it upon the ground." And from that experience came one of the greater miracles of the Old Testament, simply because a man did with the implement of his trade what God would have him to do. In the New Testament it is recorded, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed." So much of what we think in the field of Christianity and religion today has to do with men working for the Lord. Today I would like to leave with you that one simple thought, that we are laborers together with God for the building of a better world, a democracy, the kingdom of God here on earth, as we carry out His principles and His precepts forever. Now will you stand with me as we pray? Our Father, this morning, as American people, we are proud people because of the freedoms and privileges and opportunities that are ours. And when we look upon the opportunities that are ours as free people, we realize that America has come into existence because of the will of God and hath offered to her people these freedoms down through the centuries because God wants His people to be free. But this morning, as we survey the horizon of time round about us, we realize that there are many problems that face our great nation today. And we pray that organizations such as this with which we meet this morning, our churches, our communities, our schools, our way of life, all things shall be dedicated unto the preservation of these freedoms. We ask for guidance and leadership in high places this hour, for we realize that not only on the local scene, not only just within our state, not only just within our nation, but there are threats from all over the world that would destroy the American way of life. And we pray, Father, that with greater devotion and dedication, we shall remain laborers together to preserve the great freedoms that we enjoy in the democratic way of life. Thy blessings upon these people as they meet in this annual session, upon their leaders, upon leaders that will be selected, upon committees that work, upon each member that attends. We thank Thee for what organized labor has accomplished in the years gone by, for the advancement of the common man here in the great American way of life. We pray, Father, that thou will continue to use them in thy will to accomplish great things for the future. Forgive us of our sins and keep us ever within thy will. For these things we pray in our Lord's name, believing. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Reedy. We had hoped to have with us this morning the mayor of our city for a welcome address, but it was unfortunate he had to go to the hospital this week for an operation. But in his place, we are honored to have another great gentleman. Would like to say this before I introduce him to you. We here in Laurel have the knack, you might say, of coming up first with several things. Not too awfully long ago, we were all in a fight to keep one of our local industries under the BAWI bond program of the state. And we were fortunate to have in one of our local union members the secretary of that organization that was taking over the lumber company. And I told our people then, I believe it was the first time that we had an opportunity to have a member of management attending a union meeting. Now we come again this morning with another first. I don't know if it's ever been done before. This morning we have the president of the Chamber of Commerce at another union meeting. So it is my honor now to introduce to you James Kelly, president of the local Chamber of Commerce, for the welcome address here this morning. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. One of the most pleasant tasks that's assigned to any president of the Laurel Chamber of Commerce is the welcome of a nice group of people such as you. We here in Laurel are proud of our city and the progress it's made since it began as a small lumber mill alongside the railroad tracks, which at that time was in the heart of the biggest yellow pine forest in the nation. Unlike most of our cities in the South, which are having growing pains, so as to speak, as industry's thrust on the economics of agriculture, Laurel in itself was an industry before it became a community. And in that, I might add, we are proud. However, Laurel was doomed to die back in those days, as most sawmill towns was. As soon as the timber was to be cut out, most all those towns died. But as most of you know, a young man by the name of Mason come along at its peak, and he found a use for the waste materials of the sawmill. And in the southern part of our city, it stands today, as you know, the Masonite Corporation. This plant has for years hired more men than any of the time that the sawmills have ever worked in Laurel. So labor is not nothing new to us here in Laurel. Our economy and our payrolls are based on labor. And again, I might say this, we are proud of. Also in this past year, we found out that labor and the Laurel Chamber of Commerce can work together. As Mr. Stewart pointed out to you before, about 2 months ago, Laurel voted on its first BAWI bond issue in the history. Now this bond issue wasn't as big as most industrial bond issues go, but it wasn't for a new industry, so therefore we feel like we had 2 strikes against us before we got started. But labor and the Laurel Chamber of Commerce got out and worked together shoulder to shoulder. The labor contacted its people, the Laurel Chamber of Commerce, its group, and both of them worked on those in the middle. And we are proud to say that over 70% of the qualified voters in the city of Laurel turned out to vote, and 95% of those that did vote voted for this bond issue. Chamber of Commerce, together with the local labor. We served on panels on television together, we served on radio together, we had newspaper advertising together, and we feel with the two of us working together, it made us possible to put this over. We're in the middle right now in another bondage. I couldn't stand up here this morning before you and tell you how this. As I said, we're in the middle of another bond issue now in the city of Laurel for city improvements. I couldn't stand up here before you this morning and say how it's going to come out, but I'll say this, win or lose, I know this much, that by both of us working together, we're going to come out better than if one of us went at it alone. So I'm not going to take any more of your time other than to say that I'm truthfully proud to be here before you this morning and extend to you a cordial welcome to Laurel. I hope your meeting is a successful one and a most enjoyable one. And if any way that we can do anything to help it be more enjoyable or successful, please favor us, call on us to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We are also honored to have with us this morning, I would like to introduce to you now the city commissioners, our street commissioner and mayor pro tem, Brother Paul Smiley. You stand, Mr. Smiley. And our water and fire commissioner, C.A. Massey. Glad to have you gentlemen with us this morning. You know, it's been said that the best ingredients to a speech, to a good speech, is shortening. So I'm going to add a lot of shortening to what I have to say this morning and get it over with. But I would like to say that on behalf of the Laurel Labor Council, it is a pleasure for us to host this convention here in Laurel. We have been trying for a good while to get something like this here, and we're glad that we do have the opportunity now. I would like to assure you that we will do everything possible to make your stay here today enjoyable. So if anything you need, please feel free to call on us. We'll do everything we can to get it. But I would like to remind you very briefly the purpose of this convention here today. Some of the decisions that we make here today will possibly have effect on the labor movement in Mississippi for years to come. We will be called on to make decisions from the floor. And I would like to ask each one of you, as delegates, as voting delegates to this convention, to think very carefully and very prayerfully on the decision before you cast your vote. And be sure that when you do vote, that it will be the right vote to come. Now, the executive board of your state council and your local councils have been working for several months on recommendations to be brought forth here today. Remember that when these recommendations are made, they are being made by people who are in the position to know what they're talking about. They are people who have talked to the candidates, they've questioned them, they've put them on the hot seat, so to speak, to see which way they're going to dodge when they came at them with questions. So these will be the people that are making these recommendations. Listen to what they say, consider it, possibly add to it what you know from your own knowledge, and then vote your honest convictions on any decision to be made. Let me say again, it is a pleasure for the Laurel Labor Council to host this convention. Feel free to call on us in any way that we can be of service to you. I might note at this time the In talking with the mayor on this convention, he asked me to convey to you, any of you who should happen to park your car in front of a parking meter and get a parking ticket, if you will bring that ticket to me or leave it at the desk here in the lobby of the hotel, you won't have to pay that ticket. We'll take care of it for you. So at this time, I'd like to introduce to you the permanent chairman of this convention and turn the chair and the convention over to our state president, Brother Claude Ramsey. Brother Ramsey.
Certainly good to have you on with us. I'd like to have you stay. Glad to have you stay for good. President Stewart, distinguished guests, delegates to the convention. Let me say at the outset that we are most appreciative of the warm welcome that we've received here this morning, and I think that we really appreciate the fact that we do have a Chamber of Commerce in the state of Mississippi that has the fortitude and the good judgment to become part of or appear before a labor audience such as this in our state. We need more business people in the state of Mississippi that recognizes the fact that business interest in this state is more directly related to the interest of the working people of this state than with those of the vested interest. So it's indeed a pleasure, Brother Stewart, to have had the president of the Law Labor Council to extend the welcoming address here this morning to this convention. I also feel that it's appropriate at this particular time in our state's history that we've seen fit to hold this convention in the free state of Jones, in an atmosphere and a community that understands the problems of the labor movement in this great state of ours. Brother Stewart has mentioned the fact that you will be considering some very serious problems at this convention, and he couldn't have said, I made a statement carrying any more truth to that. This is probably one of the most important conventions that the labor movement's ever held in the state of Mississippi for a number of reasons. We have our backs against the wall. We have no place to go now but straight ahead and up, about as far down as we can get. The answer to our problems are in the legislative halls of the state and in the halls of the United States Congress. This matter of becoming active in politics is not a matter of choice with us. It's a matter of absolute necessity. The enemies of this trade union movement have seen fit, or have made it necessary, that we become active in the political arena. They've become very disturbed in recent months. In regards to some of our activities, you've been reading statements and so forth in the press, the last year in particular, about the fact that some people in this great state are disturbed about the fact that this labor movement is trying to take over our state's government. I'd like to begin my remarks by reading to you first a couple of news stories that have appeared in the papers recently. Because they are important, they have a definite bearing on the reason we're here today. First, I have a statement, a short news story that appeared in the Commercial Appeal on September the 18th in regards to the meeting of the Manufacturers Association in the city of Biloxi. And the headline of that article was this: Labor's campaign will be subject. Mississippi manufacturers to study 1963 election. Dateline, Jackson, Mississippi. How to cope with coal. And 63 will be the theme of the annual convention of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association on October the 18th and 19th at Buena Vista Hotel in Biloxi, Mississippi. Some of you probably read that. The activities of this organization was the subject of the recent Manufacturers Association convention in this state. I'd also like to read to you an article appearing another again in the Commercial Appeal on May the 29th, labor legislation viewed as a threat. I'd like to read this to you in its entirety because it again has a bearing on the reason we're here today. Union vote could place business in difficulty. Dateline Yazoo City, Mississippi. Local and state businessmen and industrial leaders were warned Tuesday that unless they take a more active part in politics, they can expect domination by ultra-liberal legislators elected by labor. Charles Fulgham, John O'Keefe, representing the Mississippi Manufacturers Association, told a luncheon gathering of businessmen that an organized AFL-CIO plan will be put into effect in this summer's election unless businessmen take the necessary action to protect their interests. They said the plan advocates removal from responsible public office elected officials who have shown a disregard for ultra-liberal views put forth by organized labor. Two speakers said that Mississippi could fall prey to this ultra-liberal scheme as Louisiana did in 1956. At that time, they said, labor-elected state legislators who were sympathetic to labor's demands to repeal the state's right-to-work laws and other measures which labor claimed were shackling the growth and power of unions. Not too long ago, we sent out to the affiliated local unions a copy of a letter that came into our possession by the outgoing president of the Mississippi Economic Council, better known as the State Chamber of Commerce. A number of you people have read this letter, but for the benefit of those of you that have not seen this letter, haven't had the opportunity to read it, I would like to quote from that letter the pertinent facts enclosed therein. It's a lengthy letter, therefore I won't read it all. This is by Mr. Vaughn Watkins, the outgoing president of the MEC, to the members of that organization. After the preliminary introduction and so forth, Mr. Watkins goes on to say, I want to make a personal appeal to you to start in your county in preparation for the general elections of August 1963 and attempt to communicate with all candidates. I want you to know that each candidate stands for, who is supporting that candidate, or his views your views. And in other words, can he represent you properly, your area properly, and the state of Mississippi properly in our legislative halls. And I'm deeply concerned that unless we, and I mean each of us, in his own county takes effective action now, Mississippi may undergo a change 5 months from now, which we will not like. I, of course, refer to the printed plan. This is the printed plan he's talking about. Most of you have seen it. I, of course, refer to the printed plan that the AFL-CIO, where they state they expect to secure control of the political state of Mississippi in August 1963, using the same methods which they used successfully in Louisiana in 1956. What they propose to do, from their standpoint, is logical. Political power exists, and if no one else wants it, they will take it and thereby gain power which they could not exercise over a collective bargaining table. Do not think that I am duly alarmed. The danger is real. The time is now. I have read every word of the printed plan of action of the AFL-CIO. It will be successful, and Mississippi will be labor-dominated from this time on, even as Louisiana has been labor-dominated since 1956, unless you do your part as a citizen now. I'm not fighting Mississippi workers. They're fine people. But I am concerned that out-of-state leaders who are not entitled to respect are trying to use Mississippi to further labor's interests. Our system of government is based on checks and balances, and one of these checks and balances is that every group should have an effective voice, that no other group should have the only voice in the conduct of the state's affairs. And I might add that I certainly agree with a statement by Mr. Watkins that all segments of our society in this state should be represented in our governing body. Now, I read that correspondence of those news articles for a purpose. I wanted to try to impress upon your minds as much as possible the fact that the enemies of this trade union movement are very active, and they say they're disturbed about our activities. I would like to go back with you 4 years ago when we had the first convention of this kind. After seriously considering a number of factors, the labor movement in this state decided to take positive action in the elections of 1960. We studied the situation very carefully. We made recommendations back to our people in regards to candidates for public office. Unfortunately, the man that we recommended was not elected governor of the state. The gentleman that now holds that office was, as you well know. In the course of that campaign, we distributed amongst the workers of this state this pamphlet, Warning to Mississippi Workers. Many of you have seen it, but this is probably the first time that quite a few of you have seen it. I'd like to refer to that document as to what we told the workers of Mississippi at that time, as to what would happen if Mr. Barnett, present governor, was elected governor of this state. We told our people, as a result of the campaign material that had come into our hands, the statements by some of these same gentlemen that I just quoted, we knew that if this particular group won this election, that this is what would happen to the workers of this state. And I want to now show you what we said, what the Manufacturers Association program was. Reduce income taxes on business from 6 to 4%. Reduce and restrict workmen's compensation to injured workers. Reduce and restrict unemployment insurance, laws to cripple and shackle trade unions. Well, you know what happened. This administration enacted the major part of this program. The income tax laws of the state were revised, whereby the vested interests of this state did receive a windfall in the form of tax concessions and rebates and so forth. The workmen's compensation laws of this state were amended, practically emasculating the act itself. We got a right to work in the Constitution, shackling our unions in the process of collective bargaining. We fared a little bit better in the unemployment insurance field. Fortunately, they didn't get around to this item in 1960, and it wasn't until 1962 that this matter was placed on the agenda before the state legislature. Fortunately for us, a large number of members of that legislature had learned the lesson. They found that this program, so-called program to make Mississippi more attractive to industry, was not what it was cut out to be. Therefore, they were not successful to emasculate the unemployment insurance laws as they were the workmen's compensation laws. Now that brings us up to the present situation. I felt that we should review this matter with you a little bit this morning and try to impress upon your minds as much as possible the job that lays ahead, or lies ahead. Now, it's most difficult for me to understand this propaganda that the certain selfish interest groups in this state passing out, trying to stampede the people of Mississippi, thinking that this big bad labor movement is trying to take over the state government. They said the same thing in 1960. The document that I held up and read to you, quoted from, they said the same thing in the campaigns of 1960. You know what this amounts to? Very simple. These people are now in control of our state government and have been for some time. These are diversionary tactics. They don't want the people in Mississippi to understand what they're up to. They feel that they've got to have a bogeyman to confuse the people of this state in order that they might maintain control of the state government themselves. That's how simple it is. As a result of the program adopted in 1960 by the legislature, this legislative program that I've referred to was adopted in 1960, the labor movement of this state decided something had to be done. If you recall, at our convention in Vicksburg in 1960, the legislature was still in session. The day after we adjourned that convention, right to work was adopted as a constitutional amendment. We had our executive board in session working on a plan that would stem the tide of reactionary legislation in the state, we hoped, if properly put into effect. That program was adopted by the executive board, presented to a special convention, and is now presently the program of the state AFL-CIO, the program that Mr. Watkins referred to in his letter. Mr. Watkins was one of the architects of the program adopted in 1960 himself. He was one of the right-hand men that helped adopt or draft the legislation that I've been referring to. And it seems kind of strange to me now that Mr. Watkins is disturbed about our interest in the matter. Mr. Watkins can take a certain amount of satisfaction from the fact, I feel, that he himself and his organization has had more to do with this labor movement adopting such a program than anyone else in the state of Mississippi. Now, we come to the situation at hand. The fact that business groups and labor are interested in electing people to public office, members of the legislature in particular. I have a few friends too, you know, in the Chamber of Commerce in these groups, and when they get our material, we get theirs. When they send out correspondence, somebody sends a piece over to me. Came into my hands just recently a copy of a questionnaire that the MEC is passing out to the members of that organization to use when they interview candidates running for the state legislature. I'd like to review that questionnaire with you and show you what they're up to at the present time. There's 17 questions on this questionnaire. 18 questions on this questionnaire. After checking the 18 questions out, we find that 9 of those questions, 50% of the questions on this questionnaire, are related to the welfare of labor in the state of Mississippi. And I'd like to read those questions to you. You need to know what they are. Would you oppose any effort to repeal or weaken Mississippi's right to work law, which is now a part of the state constitution? What is your position on Mississippi Workmen's Compensations Program? The liberal treatment of our workmen's compensation law by the courts has tended to make this a health insurance program rather than a program to compensate employees injured on the job. Legislation is needed to strengthen and tighten the law to stop this trend. How do you feel about Mississippi Unemployment Insurance Compensations Program? Under the present program, the unemployment compensation tax, which is paid entirely by employers, is paid on the quarterly payroll decline system. Every state except Mississippi and Utah have some form of the chargeback system. Skipping down on further down now, what would be your position toward the establishment of a Department of Labor in Mississippi? How do you feel about a Fair Labor Standards Act and a state minimum wage law in Mississippi? What is your position with regard to a State Davis-Bacon prevailing wage law? Would you favor legislation in Mississippi to permit labor organizations to sue or be sued? Would you favor legislation to regulate picketing in Mississippi? Would you favor legislation to prohibit secondary boycotts and provide for strike regulations in Mississippi? 50% of those questions deal with the members of our organizations directly. We find ourselves, of course, in agreement with a few points on their program. But the fact remains that the MEC, who has aligned itself with the Manufacturers Association and is actually doing their dirty work for them, have their sights set on you and I in the form of another restrictive legislative program. And if we are not careful, if we're not concerned with this matter and make sure that we elect a legislature and this next primary that will be more friendly to the workers of their state, this program will be enacted in the January of next year. In comparing their program with ours, what is our legislative program? Let's compare our program with that of the MEC that's in the printed folder that these people are so much disturbed about. What is Labor's legislative program? Number one, establish a state Department of Labor. Number two, reapportion the state legislature. Of course, that matter has been rectified to a point, but there's still room for further improvement. Increase workmen's compensation insurance. Provide state guaranteed loans for college education to qualified high school graduates. Increase unemployment insurance. Revise Mississippi tax law. Enact state Davis-Bacon prevailing wage law. Change primary elections from Tuesdays to Saturdays. Enact temporary disability insurance law. Raise salaries of Mississippi school teachers up to the average for the southern states. Enact comprehensive child labor laws. Enact state civil service law to cover all state employees. Qualify women as jurors on equal basis with men. Increase maximum amount of assistance to the aged and to the permanently and totally disabled. Amend state constitution, provide initiative and referendum procedure. Enact state Fair Labor Standards Act. Amend state constitution to eliminate poll tax payment as a requirement to qualify to vote. Enact law requiring equal pay to women for work equal to that done by men. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the legislative objectives of the labor movement of Mississippi, and I would respectfully suggest that the people in this state compare our program with the program of that of the MEC and the Manufacturers Association, and then determine who has the welfare of this state at heart, the labor movement or the business community and the Manufacturers Association. I think the thing speaks for itself. I hadn't planned to speak quite as long here this morning as I have already, but I felt that this was necessary, that we should review the situation at hand, the reason that we're here today, the reason that we're stressing this matter of political action so much in this labor movement about this. We will have a lot of business to take care of here today. We've tried or attempted to arrange our agenda in such a fashion that we would have an open convention this morning, allowing the press to sit in, with a closed session this afternoon that will be restricted to the delegates and guests of the convention alone. You have a lot of work to do. You have some real serious problems to consider. And I know that you're capable of solving those problems, and that when you leave here, that you will go back into your communities and put your shoulder to the wheel and see that the people that are elected to office in this next election will have the welfare of all Mississippians at heart, and not just the welfare of the vested interests of this state. Thank you so much. This time I would like to name the committees that will serve your convention. Credentials Committee will be as follows: C.E. Jack Schaefer, Chairman, Doris Kelly, Ms. Lucille Hulsey, Mr. Robert Weeks, Elizabeth Matina, Margaret Hicks, Lois White, Etor Arnold, Lorenda Gulat, Rachel McCord, Eula Liston, Bill, Peyton? Bill Peyton? Bill Pilot, and Pete Westmoreland. That's your Credentials Committee that will serve the convention. It'll only be necessary to have two committees function in this convention, Credentials and Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is as follows: Marvin Taylor, Chairman, Lonnie Daniel, John Gillespie, S.H. Dees, Rayford Huff, W.M. Stewart, Ray Smith, T.L. Nikes, Robert Thompson, Vance Hatton, Charles Moore, and H.H. Robbins. Serving as Sergeant at Arms, T.G. Beckham, G.M. Crowder, and E.W. Edwards. These will be the people that will serve the convention as Sergeant at Arms and your committee assignments. We have a number of guests present with us today, and we certainly appreciate the fact that so many of those people were able to come out and be with us. I think it would be practically impossible to introduce all of those guests. It would take too much time of the convention, but I would like to ask the lady guests that are present, not the delegates, the lady guests, our ward chairman and the wives of our members, would you please stand? We would like at least to recognize that you're here. Will those people please stand? The women guests and the ward chairman. We're certainly happy to have you with us today. We hope you enjoy the convention, and that when you go back home that you will help us get the job done that has to be done. We do have several international representatives and people of that category that I would like to recognize that are here and ask them to stand at least and be recognized. Joe Mullins, FFL-CIO representative. We'll just hold an applause as we introduce them all. Bernice Hinton of the ILGWU. Bernice in the house? Just stepped out. Brother E.H. Williams, Regional Director of the FL-CIO. Charles Newell, Representative of the ACWA. Bob Starnes, Assistant Regional Director of FL-CIO. Brother LaHost, also representative for AFL-CIO. W.A. Rowe, representative of the state, county, and municipal employees. Big, tall fellow in the back. Earl Floos of the Steelworkers International Union. And B.F. Wager of the IBEW. These are the ones that I have at the present time. I know we have several other international reps present because I've seen them here, and as soon as we get the cards up here, we will also try to find time to introduce those people, and we're certainly glad to have all of you with us. And we also hope that after you leave this convention that you will assist us in the job ahead. Let's give them all a hand. I wonder if we could get the chairman of the Credentials Committee to come in and give us a partial report. I know they're not ready for the full report, but if we could, we'd like to get a partial report out of the commission. We don't have to adopt some rules. We can't adopt rules till the delegates have been seated. That's the rules, Chairman. Brother Schaefer, could you get him to come in, please? get yours out, Marvin? All right, fine. All right, fine. Well, the sergeant at arms, while we're waiting on Brother Schaefer to get here, will you come up and help Brother Taylor pass out the rules? We can at least do that. The proposed rules that will be submitted to you for consideration after the delegates have been seated. I thought I had a couple of more cards. What Ray? Ray must. Does everyone have a copy of the proposed rules? If you don't have, would you hold up your hand where they can see you? One over on that side, or far side over there, Brother Edwards. Right across from you there. Everyone have a copy? Will the convention please be in order? This time it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you the chairman of your credentials committee, who will give you a partial report at this time, Brother Jack Schaefer.
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. The Credentials and Registration Committee has examined and carefully checked credentials, and we find the following and offer to you as a partial report. There is 46 local unions represented, 20 international unions, 14 building trades council, CLUs, and associations, representing 134 delegates, which has been issued badges. I move that these be seated.
You heard the committee's partial report that they have found the credentials in order for 134 delegates.
Right.
That those delegates that have been issued badges be seated at this time. We're having a discussion on the motion. Second motion. Any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Thank you, Brother Schaefer. At this time, we will call on the chairman of the Rules Committee, who will present to you the Rules Committee's report in the form of a proposed set of rules with which to operate the convention by. Brother Marvin Taylor, chairman of the Rules Committee.
The convention shall be called to order at 9:30 a.m. and we recess at 12 o'clock noon for lunch. The convention will reconvene at 1:30 p.m. and adjourn when all business has been transacted. Rule 2, every delegate desiring to speak on any subject shall proceed to the mic in his area and be recognized by the chair, announce his name and the organization he represents. Rule 3, a delegate shall not speak more than once on the same subject until all who wish to speak have had an opportunity to do so, nor more than twice, nor longer than 5 minutes at a time, without the unanimous consent of the convention. Rule 4, any delegate to the Mississippi AFL-CIO Cope Convention who disturbs the peace and dignity of the convention shall be barred from a seat or a vote in the deliberations of this convention. Rule 5, a roll call vote shall be taken on the demand of 30% of delegates. Rule 6, the Cope bylaws shall be the guide on all matters for which no provision is made herein. The foregoing rules can only be changed by a 2/3 vote of the delegates present and voting respectfully submitted by the committee, and I move that this report be adopted.
You've heard the committee's report and the motion to adopt the rules that you have before you.
Second.
We have a second. We have any discussion on the motion? You ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. Motion carried and so ordered. We are fortunate this morning in having with us a young lady who we have all learned to love and respect, who has a very special job to do for the labor movement of this nation. She is very much concerned about some of the problems that we are confronted with here in the state of Mississippi. We were fortunate in having been able to get her away from her busy schedule, so to speak, and come down and spend just a few hours with us at this convention. Unfortunately, she will not be able to spend the entire day with us. She'll have to get a plane and get back out, take up her activities again. She comes from Washington, as most of you know. It gives me a great deal of pleasure at this time to present to you Sister Esther Murray, Director of Women's Activities. Sister Murray.
President Ramsey, Mr. Stewart, officers of the convention, and delegates to the convention. As I watch this group of people gathering here today, I had again a sense of great regret that Jim McDevitt died before he saw the fruition shown here today of one of his most earnest desires. I can well recall when we came into Mississippi several years ago in the hope of setting up a COPE organization. And today shows the results of the planning begun then. And so I congratulate you and your officers on the really outstanding demonstration you are giving here today of the awareness and the determination of the labor movement of this state. I'm also happy to know that there are here approximately, so far as I could count, and I only could count very casually, approximately 50 women, not all as delegates, but here as interested guests and delegates. That's good. But I'm looking forward to the time before I die when there'll be half this room will be made up of women who are delegates as well as guests to the COPE organization. Because, you know, boys, the truth of the matter is that in 1960, the census figures show that there are in the state of Mississippi and over the age of 21, 614,000 women, and there are only 555,000 of you men. 614,000 women over the age of 21 in the state of Mississippi, and only 555,000 men. Girls, you are 59,000 short and enough men to go around in this state. In the 1st Congressional District of Mississippi, there are 10,000 more women than men over the age of 21. In the 2nd Congressional District, 5,000 more. In the 3rd Congressional District, 7,000 more. In the 4th Congressional District, 18,000 more. In the 5th Congressional District, 9,000 more. In the 6th Congressional District, 4,000 more. Now that's what I'm here to talk about. Whether you like it or not, and I've said it before and you've heard me say it again, but I can't say it somehow loud enough and often enough to get through. Whether you like it or not, women are becoming not only the majority in numbers, but the majority of voters. In the state of Michigan, in 1962, for the first time in the history of that state, more women voted than men. They'd always been there, but they voted their strength for the first time. And a conservative, anti-labor governor was elected. In the city of Omaha in 1962, for the first time in the history of that city, more women voted than men. And the result is not pro-labor. You have in this state a group of women in every council, our Women's Activities Department, who as wives or members of the trade union movement are attempting to help you in the trade union movement win elections. I wonder how many of the men sitting in this room have a wife at home who hasn't spent 5 minutes in the WAD program. You cannot win anymore by keeping your wife at home and telling it her job is the children, you're going to handle the political affairs of the country. Every man who says this to himself or to his wife cuts his own political strength in half. It is not only the matter of the importance of getting our women qualified to vote in the labor movement. It's a matter of life and death to do it. You know, sometimes people say to the labor people of the state of Mississippi, look, you're not a large enough organization to change the pattern of the state. If you get your wives and family members registered and voting, you're a plenty large enough organization. You're twice as strong today than you know you are. Twice as large as you believe you are. Because you have a companion to the trade union movement somewhere in your family. And what I'm wondering is how can we somehow bring home to you so that you will understand the power you've got, the importance of your using your family members in the political program of the AFL-CIO. And what do we mean when we say use our family members? We mean to help our women who are not trade union members and who do not therefore have the full understanding of the importance of the legislative program. The women in the trade union movement understand this just about as well as the men do. But there is in every home a woman who does not understand it. And not enough effort is being made to bring it home to her. It was recently passed in Washington, after, I think, some 30 years of agitation, a bill, the Equal Pay for Equal Work bill. It is now federal law that in matters of interstate commerce, a woman and a man doing identical work must be paid an identical wage. It took many years to bring that about. And much agitation on the part of not only women, but men, who began to see that the importance of this in keeping men employed as well, keeping up the wage level of men. Because if it were possible to employ women at lower wages than men, men were losing their jobs. And finally it dawned on the men that equal pay for equal work was good for them too. And so the bill has been passed. And we're proud and glad for that. But there are innumerable pieces of legislation which affect our women in the homes who are not working. And how little we know about them. And how little we are able to reach into our homes and to educate our women. If we had a good, strong WAD program in every council, it certainly would help. What kind of legislation am I talking about? Last week I was in Wisconsin working with the woman who is the state director of women's activities there. We went into a great supermarket. She was looking for something she needed. And I stood in front of the soap shelves. And I noticed there was a great package of soap, with several pounds, and then another package by the same people, smaller, and a third package still smaller. So I tried a little experiment. I called our women's activities director over and I said, now let's find out from the big package how many ounces of soap are in the big package. How many ounces of soap are in the second package, and how many ounces of soap are in the smaller one, to decide which is really the better buy. Well, boy, had I opened a hornet's nest. Because she and I are typical women. We don't understand percentages very well. And here was a big box of soap. And we had to look hard, by the way, to find out on it the listing of the amount of soap that was in it. But finally, on the back, down underneath, in small print, we found it because it's required by law. 30-some ounces, not 30 ounces even, no indeed, 30-some ounces and 5/8 of an ounce. 30 and 5/8 ounces were in this package. The second package had something like 15 and 6/10. Wasn't quite, it was an uneven number. It would have had to be 16 and 5/8 or some such in the second one. And the third one again had a certain number of ounces, never an even 16 or 8 ounces, but always a 5 and 3/4 ounces or some such. So we started to figure out what was actually the cost per ounce in each package. We spent, I pledge my word, 1 hour, the two of us in front of it with paper and pencil, trying to figure out how much per ounce was in the bigger package, how much per ounce the second package, how much per ounce the third package, and I'm not sure we're right. But I think we came to the conclusion that 3 of the small packages were cheaper than the large package, which was supposed to give you very much more. This whole problem of packaging has become a $20 billion a year industry. Every person in this room pays $16 a month out of his grocery bill for the packages he's buying. Not what's in them, just the packages. And the dishonest representation to us as consumers on these packages has become a national scandal. Well, there's legislation introduced to correct that. Who knows about this legislation? How many of our women are qualified to go into a store, make a check on this kind of thing, report back to the council, build up support for the legislation? That's the national, just one little program on the national level. You know also that there is, every time girls, or you men here, if you happen to help your wives with the laundry or the washing, every time you use a detergent that has an oil base, you're pouring something into the water stream of the United States that can never be taken out. There is no way known today to take an oil-based detergent out of the water once it gets in it. And when you go out past the streams and you see these nice foamy streams, foam is right. You're absolutely right. It's soap that they can never get out of the water of the United States. And Maureen Neuberger, senator from Oregon, has introduced legislation to correct this, to make it illegal. There are other detergents possible, but who's working on it? I spoke with Mr. Ramsey this morning and told him about the fact that it is actually not unusual. It just doesn't happen every day, but it does happen in Washington, D.C. Today you turn on the drinking fountain to take a glass of water and it's got a head on it like a bottle of beer would have. It's true. It's true. And it's happening all over the country. Our water resources are being polluted. These are things about which our women should know. These are the kinds of motivations with which we can reach our women who won't understand, perhaps, or be too much interested in technical or economic issues that sound a little bit difficult, but by golly, every one of us can understand the problem of honest packaging and can understand the problem of clean water. And so the involvement of every woman in the trade union movement is possible. It's possible. And once she's involved in the trade union movement, in the political program, what are we going to do? What are you going to do after you make your endorsements this afternoon? I shall not be here, I'm sorry to say. I wish I could stay. But I hope I'll have the opportunity to come back while you're trying to elect the men and women, if there are any. I don't know if there are any women running for office in this state.
Yeah.
There are some?
And we're
All right.
supporting some of them.
Fine, all right. When you are working to support men and women whom the labor movement has endorsed in this state, what are you going to do about it? Are you men who are going to carry the major responsibility going to make a wise use of your women's activities groups? Are you going to sit down with these girls and analyze with them where the big push has to be to get the vote out? Because after all, that's the only reason we have come, to get the vote out. If we have a card file, have you analyzed, are you going to analyze who's going to work what areas? How are you going to work it? Are you going to get the people out on election day by a telephone campaign or a house-to-house campaign or a mailing campaign, and why you're going to do it one way here and another way there? Have you trained our girls so that they will know how on election day to give the maximum effort to get that vote out? This is a highly trained skill. Have we faced the fact that in many of our cities the reason people don't vote isn't because they don't know it's election day? Sure, they know it's election day. They don't know where to go to vote. I'm not sure that it's true. I don't think this is true in our smaller communities. But in our bigger cities, when we've made 7,000 telephone calls to tell people, they remind them it's election, we've had to make 5,000 recalls to those people to tell them where to vote. They're perfectly willing to go, but they don't know where. Hadn't thought about it before. Aren't prepared. This matter of giving the maximum push behind whom you endorse is the real test of the political strength of the labor movement in this state. If you make only 3 endorsements, or if you make 30 endorsements, make it thinking about whether or not you're really going to put something besides word behind that endorsement. If there's anything I would like to say to you today before I sit down, it is that the Women's Activities Department will be an invaluable asset to you to get out the vote if you know how to use this department effectively. And you can't get out the vote on election day by starting a month before. The job of getting our card files ready, our people precincted, a knowledge of who's qualified to vote and who isn't, so we won't waste time or money on election day on people who are not qualified. This has to start now. It takes 5 months at least to get ready. If you're going to put on telephone campaigns, the preparation of telephone lists, the analyzing of those areas where there are people who are likely to vote your way even if they aren't members of the labor movement, we want that vote out too. And we have to start now. These are the specific problems that confront you once you've done your work this afternoon. And I should like to close. I'm not going to take much longer. I should like to, before I close, to make a comment on the fact that what I plead with you as a great movement in this state, once your endorsements have been made, whether you like them or not, stick with them. Stick with your movement. Stay loyal to it, so you don't like an endorsement here or there. Your judgment in that case is minor compared to the tremendous power that the trade union movement of this state can show if it stays united for the trade union movement. So you may make a mistake in judgment. It won't be the first time the trade union movement's made a mistake in judgment. We've made them before. But our great mistake has not been the united judgment of the trade union movement. Our great mistake has been when individuals glance off from those endorsements and attempt to build their own little empires with candidates and with public officials. This is the only real disaster that can happen to you if you put your full strength behind your candidates and really get out your vote on election day. Girls, you are working on the card files. You are setting up WAD programs in this state. We're doing what you can to help the trade union movement, and sometimes you're discouraged. Just remember that these card files upon which you're working, these membership lists, are the absolutely necessary tool to get out the vote on election day, to find the workers. It is the most important contribution you can make to the trade union movement, to get those lists ready and to start now planning to be free on election day. Any woman who's planning her vacation, think of it in terms of whether or not election day is going to come up. Anybody who's planning special events of some kind, remember, when election day comes up, you're going to be ready on the job that's been assigned to you to help get that vote out. Nothing's going to be more important than your being on the job on election day, except the work that you do before you get on that job. Mr. Ramsey has made a most eloquent and intelligent analysis of the problems of the trade union movement in this state and the potential. The wonderful thing it is that it isn't only a problem, it's a potential. It's an opportunity to do the thing that a few years ago you would have said could not possibly be done. That you could actually make your weight felt at the state legislature, in those state legislative races, in such a way as to prevent damage and actually move forward the trade union movement in this state. There is no question at all that on the national level, by and large, not totally, but by and large, the liberal movement of America is moving forward. The Congress and the Senate of the United States are alerted to the awareness of the American people and the trade union movement. And we're moving forward. Not far enough. You need some people from Mississippi. We could use some other people from those 5 districts in Mississippi. But nevertheless, on the national level, we're moving forward. And what's the result? The enemies of the trade union movement are concentrating in the state legislatures. In every single district in the Middle West from which I've just come, there is suddenly an awakening of alertness on the part of the trade union movement to the fact that their job has to be done in the state legislature. We've not been concentrating enough on seeing to it that the men who go into the state legislative races are the men who understand the problems of the trade union movement, because the future leaders of the national legislature usually come out of the state legislature. And so, as one of those outsiders who has a deep interest in what happens in the trade union movement of Mississippi, let me add my word to that of your president, that the state legislative races should call for everything you've got. If you make endorsements on those state legislative races, and I assume you will, because what other possible function is more important to you than the state, Mississippi itself, that every woman in this room will go out of here pledging herself that somehow she'll find the time, somehow she'll find the skill to be useful to her trade union movement, not only to the women of the trade union movement, but don't forget, girls, there are 59,000 more of you over the age of 21, and not all of you are in the trade union movement or married to trade union men. But you are largely in working areas, working class areas, because that's where the majority of the people are. And so the influence that you exert must be beyond the trade union movement. And that must come from a study of the issues, from your being able to defend the position of the trade union movement on issues before others in your local community. This is one of the great services that you can give. Sometime, I hope, before the election, if not before the election, then after the election, I hope the opportunity will be given to me to come into this state and spend time with each one of our WAD groups. Not an hour like this on a platform. This doesn't really do very much for you. I'd like to spend time in every single council, sitting down with you, helping to do what I can to develop a program and to help you learn how to do the maximum job for the trade union movement on election day, because that's what our WAD is for. It's to help win elections. You know, we don't make problems, boys. We solve problems. And with that thought, I leave you.
Thank you, Sister Murray, for such an inspiring address. I'm sure that our people will accept your advice when they return home and assist us in getting the job that needs to be done so badly done in our state. Real pleasure to have you with us. We sincerely regret the fact that you cannot be with us for the remainder of the convention, but we will look forward to having you back with us again in the near future. We're going to deviate just slightly from the printed agenda. I think this would be the appropriate time and place to present to you a resolution that the Executive Board of the Council deemed proper to present memory of our beloved past Director of Political Education, James L. Mike Devitt. I would like to ask Brother Knight, our Director of Political Education, to come forward and present the resolution to you at this time. Before we take that matter up, there's a phone call out in the lobby. At least someone wants Brother, what's the name? C.B. Scholes, is it Scholes? Showers, C.B. Showers. Brother Showers wanted out in the lobby.
I'd say that the resolution is being passed to you at this time. Whereas the recent untimely death of James L. McDevitt, National Director of the AFL-CIO Committee on Political Education, has left a great void in the lives of hundreds of thousands of his friends within the American labor movement, and whereas the members of the Mississippi labor movement were shocked and grieved at his untimely death, for no one served the cause of the trade union movement with more dedication than did Brother McDevitt. And whereas he devoted a lifetime towards improving our nation's democratic processes, as well as the lot of the working men and women. And whereas his life of dedicated service to the trade union movement, to our nation, will forever stand as an example for others to achieve. Now therefore be it resolved that the second regular convention of the Mississippi AFL-CIO Convention on Political Education does pay its respect to Brother McDevitt and do humbly offer our condolences to the bereaved members of his family. Respectfully submitted, the Executive Board of the Mississippi AFL-CIO. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this resolution.
You've heard the resolution and the motion to adopt. You having a discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? They are passing out copies for those of you who don't have it. Any of you don't have a copy, if you hold up your hand, they can give it to you back there. Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Sister Murray, I'd like to, well, you do have a copy of the resolution. We felt it would be appropriate at this time, while you were still with us, to present this resolution to the convention, because we know that Brother Mike Devitt's death was a tremendous loss to you as well as those other fine people on the staff of our Committee on Political Education at the Washington level.
I hope this will be sent to Mrs. McDevitt.
Yes, a copy of the resolution will be sent to Mrs. Mike Devitt. You have before you a copy of the agenda. We tried to rough out an agenda for you so you could have some idea about how the convention would be conducted. We have gotten just slightly behind schedule, not too much, but a little bit behind schedule. You will note on that agenda that at this point we propose to break up into caucuses for the purpose of making a decision in regards to some of the district-wide offices. 4 years ago, we handled this matter by the caucus method. The executive board deemed it advisable to handle this matter again this way. So we will break up into caucuses those delegates in the northern district, the delegates in the central district, the delegates in the southern district. We have some contest in the highway commissioner positions and the public service commissions positions there. And before we break up in the caucus, I'm going to ask Brother Knight to come forward and read you the names of the counties in those particular districts, because I realize the fact that some of you are not too sure about what district you're in. The lines are kind of jagged, and I myself was surprised to find some counties in the north, or rather the central district, that I thought were in the north. So we'll ask him to read those counties to you. You'll first start with the northern district. For the night.
Northern District Highway Commissioner: Alcorn, Benton, Calhoun, Carroll, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Clay, Coahoma, DeSoto, Grenada, Itawamba, Lafayette, Lee, LaFleur, Lowndes, Marshall, Monroe, Montgomery, Octavie Hall, Pinola, Pontotoc, Prentice, Quitman, Tallahatchie, Tate, Tippa, Tishomingo, Tunica, Union, Webster, and Yalobusha. The Public Service Commissioner District is the same. The Central District: Attala, Bolivar, Hines, Holmes, Humphreys, Issaquena, Kemper, Lauderdale, Leake, Madison, Neshoba, Newton, Noxubee, Rankin, Scott, Sharkey, Sunflower, Warren, Washington, Winston, Yazoo. The Public Service Commissioner is the same. Central District. Southern District: Adams, Emmett, Claiborne, Clark, Copar, Covington, Forrest, Franklin, George, Green, Hancock, Harrison, Jackson, Jasper, Jefferson, Jefferson Davis, Jones, Lamar, Lawrence, Lincoln, Marion, Pearl River, Perry, Pike, Simpson, Smith, Stone, Walthall, Wayne, Wilkinson. The Public Service Commissioner is the same. Mr. President, while I'm here, I would like to move that whatever the decision of these caucuses might be in the races for our Public Service and Highway Commissioner be tantamount to convention decision. I so move.
For the motion, we did get a second that the decision arrived at in these caucuses be tantamount to convention endorsement. In other words, when they make the decision, that decision will stand. Won't be necessary to report back here for further action. We have a discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Now, I deem it proper, appropriate at this time to name a temporary chairman for each group, with your permission, a person to call the meeting to order, which time, of course, you will elect yourselves a permanent chairman. Northern District, I'd like to name Brother John Gillespie, the president of the Tupelo Central Labor Union. The Central District, Brother Lonnie Daniel, chairman of the Jackson Central Labor Union. And in the Southern District, Brother Stewart, chairman of the Laurel Labor Council in the Southern District. These gentlemen will call the meetings to order, and then you yourselves will elect yourselves a permanent chairman. We will, after the caucuses, of course, we won't convene back in here until after lunch, as you note on the agenda. You will, after you finish your caucus business, you will be free to go get your lunch, and we'd like to see you back here at 1:30. Now, before we break up, I'm going to ask Brother Stewart, president of the Laurel Labor Council, to advise you where the restaurants are in the town, recognizing the fact that you might have difficulty finding a place to eat. Laurel being a rather small place, they don't have any large restaurants, and I know it'd be difficult for you to get in any single restaurant, so you need to know where to find a good place to eat. I'm going to ask him at this time to make that announcement.
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. He stated it will be difficult in the smaller towns to find a good restaurant, but sort of scatter out. Of course, they have the hotel restaurant here. You go 1 block down, turn one to your right, and about halfway up the block, you'll find 2 fairly nice-sized restaurants, Manhattan Cafe and Nicholson's Cafe. And then to your left, you'll find Walgreens Drugstore and the Crest Store. Both have lunch counters. And 1 block further down, Woolworth has a lunch counter. And still further down on across the tracks, you'll find 2 small restaurants there if you want to go that far down. Those of you who would like to sit in your car and just have short order hamburgers, hot dog, and such, 1 block down and 1 block north, and then back to your left, you'll find the Frost Top, very nice drive-in restaurant, and just across under the underpass, like you're going back towards Meridian, find a nice drive-in restaurant there. I do hope from these instructions you can find a place to at least get you a bite to eat and be back with us after lunch to end the business session. Thank you, Brother Ramsey.
Thank you, Brother Stewart. Now, before we break up into the caucus, we want to try to advise you as to where to meet. And the fact that one of us, Brother Knight, myself, and I would like to ask Brother Taylor to appear before the Northern District, Tom take the Central District, and me the Southern District, and present to you the findings that we have for this particular caucus. I'll talk to you, Marvin, about this matter. Now, we're going to have to break up and caucus in this room. It's the only large meeting place that we have. And I believe that the Southern group is probably the larger of the 2. We'd like to ask them to come to this end of the hall, and we'll try to gather around up here and handle our business here. The Central to meet in the middle of the building, and the Northern District in the far back. Would you please begin to break up into those caucuses now? To call this group of up and down this table's attention to that wire they have on the table there. Brother Bruton has patched up the PA system in such a fashion that it's necessary to keep that wire. So please don't disturb it. This system is going out, and either break this up on it to work. Just, you will, don't bother the brown table. While we're waiting for the delegates to assemble in the hall, we would like to call your attention to the fact that this will be an executive session this afternoon, and it'll be necessary for each person in attendance to have a badge on. It's a matter of identification, either a delegate or a guest badge. And the Sergeant-at-Arms will request or insist that those people entering the hall have their proper credentials and a place where they can be seen. If there are delegates present that do not have proper identification, will they please get those badges out and get them on? Please come to order. Will the delegates please be seated? We consulted with the management of the hotel for the benefit of those of you that might be worried about the checkout time. They've advised us that the time will be extended to 5 o'clock with an understanding if we need any further extension, we'll talk about it at that time. We hope that the convention will be through with our business before that time. If it works out as we hope it will, we should be through around 4 o'clock. Okay? We will deviate slightly from the printed agenda this time and call on the chairman of the Credentials Committee to give us the committee's final report. Brother Schaefer.
Thank you, Brother Ramsey. This will be the final report of the committee. 128 delegates, and I'd like to offer my apologies for the erroneous report this morning. We had counted some guests as delegates, but it is 128 registered delegates from 47 local unions, 14 central labor unions, 1 association, and of course the executive board of the Mississippi Labor Council, AFL-CIO. 23 guests. Mr. Chairman, I move that this report be adopted.
You've heard the committee's report, the motion to adopt, and we did have a second. Are we having a discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered.
I would just like to say, in the interest of preserving time, there will be no roll call unless it's necessary for a vote count.
Brother Schaefer, we appreciate the work your committee's done. We recognize the fact that you'd like to be discharged, but as he mentions, the fact it might be necessary for this committee to function further before the convention's over. Therefore, we will not discharge the committee at this time. We are fortunate to this afternoon in having with us an old friend who most of you know. He's been at our conventions on a number of occasions. He's worked very diligently in aiding and assisting us at the state council level, attempting to formulate the programs and policies of the organization. I'm sure that all of you are indebted to him as we are at the state level. It gives us a great deal of pleasure this afternoon to present to you Brother Dan Powell, Area Director, Committee on Political Education in this area. Brother Powell.
Thank you, Claude. Brothers and sisters, when you registered this morning, you were given a packet of, of literature. I want you to open that for a moment and reach inside and pull out the leaflet. The target is you. Everybody find that leaflet? Now, if you've never read a leaflet before, or if you never read a leaflet again, it's important that you read this leaflet. This is the story of the greatest threat to democracy and liberty in the United States today. The more than 2,000 radical right-wing organizations that are operating in America. I will ask you not to read it while I'm talking to you.
Do any of you personally know a communist in your hometown or state? If you do, let's see your hands. We'd like to get a sort of census of the number of communists that we know of in Mississippi. You know one. This young lady back here knows one in her hometown. Anybody else know one? Well, J. Edgar Hoover estimates that there are less than 25 communists in the whole state of Mississippi. Yet today, we have in existence in the state of Mississippi more than 200 organizations who give as their reason for existence to fight communism. Now, it must be a frustrating task for 200 organizations to fight less than 10 communists. Under the guise of fighting communism and maintaining the Southern way of life, many of these organizations are fighting the unions and the legislative goals that the unions stand for. That's why that I say that it is extremely important that you read this leaflet. You know, in a little town some years ago, a young man applied to the school board for the position of teacher. And when he came before the school board, is this mic on, close? When he came before the school board, they asked him what he wanted to teach, what subject. He says geography. And the chairman of the school board, he says, young man, says geography is the most dangerous subject you can teach in this county. The young fellow says, why? He says, I'll tell you, he says, half of the county believes that the world is flat, and the other half believes it's round. So you see the problem. The young fellow says, that doesn't worry me. He says, I can teach it either way or both ways. I've often wondered after that teacher got the job how he taught geography. Whether he taught the world was flat or the world was round. As labor leaders, we are also teachers. And like that teacher, we face the task of teaching whether the world is flat or whether the world is round. And when confronted with that question, some of us, like that teacher, before they decide which way they're going to teach the world is, look to their job. Too many times in the local union, in the city council, we say we'd better not talk about this or we'd better not talk about that, because we've got a sizable portion of the membership or some shop stewards or some officers or some other people that have got political influence in that union that have got different opinions on that issue. And we like those jobs as president, as business agent, as secretary treasurer. Even as shop steward, occasionally we like those. So we don't rock the boat. We might not get reelected. And when we do that, we are opinion takers and office holders, not leaders. Leadership demands a stand on principles and issues. Sometimes it's dangerous. Today we face a crucial hour in the history of our nation and of our state. Like the teacher, we are going to have to decide in the days ahead whether the world is flat or whether the world is round. We're going to have to decide whether we are living in 1863 or whether we are living in 1963. We are going to have to decide in the coming months whether Mississippi is going to continue to be a part of the United States. We're going to have to decide whether we believe in the Constitution of the United States, whether we believe in law and order or riots and mob rule, whether the public schools of Mississippi shall remain open. We're going to have to decide whether all the people of Mississippi shall have the freedom, the liberty, and the equality of opportunity that's guaranteed them under the Constitution, or whether these blessings shall be reserved for those who are fortunate enough to be born white Protestants. We're going to have to decide whether we want, as President of the United States, Republican Barry Goldwater, an open and avowed enemy of organized labor, or whether we want Democrat John F. Kennedy, who has been one of the biggest presidents that we've ever had in the White House. As union members, we're going to have to decide whether our first loyalty shall be to the labor union or to the White Citizens Councils or to the NAACP. We're going to have to decide whether we are Republicans or Democrats or Dixiecrats. Yes, in the months ahead, we're going to have to decide whether the world is flat or round. I'm going to try not to take too much of your time here this afternoon, because when I sit down, you have some difficult problems to decide. One of the most difficult problems you have to decide is how not to endorse a candidate and at the same time endorse him. Another problem that you have to decide is how to keep what you are doing here this afternoon secret from the press, yet mail that information to 25 or 30,000 union members in this state. If you are able to accomplish either of these things, then you rightfully deserve the title Miracle Workers of 1963. You're probably not going to make an endorsement here this afternoon in the governor's race for two reasons. The first reason, none of the candidates are desirous of an open endorsement from organized labor. And the second reason, and perhaps a major reason, is the fact that you're so badly divided in your local unions and in your central bodies that it is doubtful that we could get the necessary two-thirds votes here this afternoon for any candidate in this race. We may try to console ourselves in not making an endorsement by saying, well, we're building a two-party system in this state, and we can come back here at the convention in September and October and make an endorsement in the general election. I sincerely hope that you are not deceiving yourself. I sincerely hope that September you will have a choice. But in September or in October or in November, your problems that you have today are not going to fade away. They are going to be with you as much in September and in October as they are right here today. And you're going to have the same problem in making an endorsement then that you've got in making an endorsement now. The problems that beset you here today did not just arise yesterday or last October at Oxford, Mississippi, but they are the accumulation of problems that had their beginnings years ago in this state. And they are the result, the cumulative result of the failure of labor leadership in this state to take positive actions and positive stands. The first reason, the first problem is that the candidates don't want your endorsement. Why? Because in the past you have not demonstrated that you were a cohesive force in Mississippi politics. Because the candidates know that they can go to your local unions and pick you off one at a time. They don't have to have the endorsement for the state convention. And they've been busily doing it. And we're split over candidates. Some of us are for Johnson, some of us for Sullivan, and perhaps more for Coleman. Why are we split over candidates? The real reason that there's a serious split in the labor movement in Mississippi today over candidates is because of attitudes that have been developing in this state for a number of years in the past. In the name of states' rights, for over 20 years, a systematic campaign of distrust and hatred of the federal government of the United States has been going on. And some of our people have been victims of that campaign. At times, it's bordered even on treason. They haven't told you that this is your government, that your elected representatives from Mississippi have sat in Washington as a part of that government, have helped shape it and direct it, that your representatives have headed important committees up there. They've told you that the federal government was a sort of evil monster. What's so bad about the government of the United States? What harm has it done to you? What rights has it denied you? Let's examine it. First, let's talk about taxes. On every dollar of taxes that the federal government collects in the state of Mississippi, they send back into Mississippi $2.50 or more. So you haven't fared badly on taxes, have you? The highways that you rode to Laurel on today to attend this meeting, the majority of the money spent to build those highways were federal funds. The people in Mississippi that are drawing old age pensions today, the majority of the money that go to pay old age pensions, dependent child care, and the other services are paid for by federal funds. The hospital that you go to in your hometown, chances are it was built under the Hill-Burton Hospital Act and paid for by federal funds, or city of Jackson, Gulfport of Biloxi, and there's been any building in that city lately in terms of the clearance of certain slum areas? Federal money paid for the clearance of the slums and the area redevelopment. The farmers of Mississippi for years have been paid subsidies of federal funds for their crops. Even the county agent, part of his salary is paid in federal funds. The levees that controls you from the flood, that control the floods of the Mississippi River, all paid for by federal funds. If this federal government is so bad, so vicious, then why doesn't Governor Barnett refuse to take any of those federal dollars that are being sent back in the states? You haven't done badly in Mississippi as far as the federal government is concerned, in federal grants. What rights has this terrible federal government up in Washington denied you? Oh, it's denied you some rights. You used to have the right when you were 65 years of age or older to go to the poorhouse or live on the charity of your neighbors. Now the federal government has taken that right away from you. It's provided you with Social Security. You used to have the right to work for 10, 15, 20, or 25 cents an hour, whatever the boss would pay. The federal government has taken that right away from you. It says now you can't work for less than $1.25 an hour. They've taken another right away from you too. Used to, when you were unemployed, you had the right to starve. But they've taken that right away from you. They've given you unemployment insurance. For the soldiers and sailors of America, they took some rights away too. They took your right away to come back and not have anything. And they replaced that right with GI insurance. They permitted you to go to college, to get a loan for college, to get a loan for a house, or a loan for business. And you used to have the right to put your money in a bank and have that bank close, and you lose all your money. And they've taken that right away from you too. They now require a federal law that all your bank account up to $10,000 be insured by the federal government. So this is the way that the federal government has invaded the state of Mississippi and denied you your state's rights. This is what you've been told for 40 years, or 20 years now. The other night I sat in the city of Memphis in my living room and I listened to a candidate for governor of Mississippi. A candidate who said he was a Democrat, who was running in the Democratic primary, and Democratic candidate Sullivan spent the full 30 minutes of that broadcast attacking another candidate because that candidate, he said, had supported the Democratic nominee for president in 1960. Now think about that a minute. You have got a gubernatorial campaign down here. You've got three candidates who claim to be Democrats running in a Democratic campaign, making the main issue that one of those candidates supported the Democratic nominee for president in 1960. Now, why is it? Why is it that in a presidential election, the Democratic candidate for President of the United States is always unpopular in the state of Mississippi? It didn't just start with John F. Kennedy. It started back in 1940 when Franklin Delano Roosevelt was seeking his third term as President of the United States, and you had a revolt against him here in Mississippi. And if you will look back from 1940 to 1960 and again in 1964, you will find many of the same faces that were fighting Franklin Delano Roosevelt or fighting John F. Kennedy. Now, they don't tell you that. They tell you that the reason that they are opposed to Kennedy is a race issue. Why were they opposed to Roosevelt in 1940? There was no race issue then. The race issue is a disguise, a mask with which they are deceiving you. They are opposing Kennedy for the same reason that they opposed Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Economics. Economics. They do not want as President of the United States a man who is interested in the economic welfare of the working people of America. They want a Herbert Hoover or a Barry Goldwater, a man who is interested in the rich of America, in the corporations, in the vested interests. The race issue has been a great gimmick for them, though. 1948, they used the race issue down here against Harry Truman. Carry the state for Thurman and Rankin. Oh, they told you that if Harry Truman were elected, you were going to have an FEPC. They opposed Adlai Stevenson both in 1952, before the Supreme Court decision came down, and again in 1954, after the Supreme Court decision came down. 1956. They opposed John F. Kennedy in 1960. Now, what has John F. Kennedy done that's such high crime and treason to the state of Mississippi? You say he called out the federal troops at Oxford. And I say to you that any president of the United States would have called out the federal troops at Oxford. Under his oath of office, he had to enforce the orders of the court. In 1954, 1954, the Supreme Court of the United States handed down an order saying that any state that had a law requiring segregation in the public schools, that law was unconstitutional. Now, many of us did not like that, but it was the law of the land. And in the year that elapsed between the time that the decision came down and in the year between the time of the decision and the implementation order, there arose in the South some organizations and some politicians whose intent was to deceive, to bitterly deceive the people of the South. They told you, join this organization, or elect me to the legislature, and we will prevent the desegregation of schools in the South. They didn't believe it themselves. Has a single one of your congressmen in Washington or a single one of your senators introduced a bill in the United States Congress to permit the states to have segregated schools? They have not. But they come down here and they stir you up. They hold out false hopes to you. Now I know that many of you don't like the desegregation of public schools. And you have got just as much right to your opinion as I've got to mine. By the same token, none of us like death. But death, we know, is inevitable. And the law of the land is inevitable. It's going to be carried out. It would be just as sensible to go out here and start burning all the funeral parlors and killing all the undertakers because we dislike death as it would be to riot and close the schools in order to prevent desegregation. That's not the real issue of this campaign. Because no candidate for governor can do anything about that issue. The real issue of this gubernatorial campaign are things that the candidate for governor can do something about. A labor department, an increase of unemployment compensation, an increase of workman's compensation, a revision of the Mississippi tax laws to ease the tax burden on the working people. Economic issues. The economic welfare of the people of Mississippi is the issue of this campaign, but you won't hear it discussed by two of the candidates. Why? You're going to hear the tape recordings in a few minutes. The Mississippi Manufacturers Association, the economic interests that control this state, own Sullivan, lock, stock, and barrel. So he's going to make his campaign on the fact that the Democratic candidate for governor supported the Democrat for president in 1960. It's time we decide whether the world is flat or round. There is one hope, however. Despite the position of inaction that you're going to have in the governor's race, and the little effect that you're going to have on the governor's race, you can make a good showing and have a good effect on the legislative races. And I am happy to say that labor has done in this state in getting out candidates, in endorsing candidates, in getting money to support those candidates for the legislature, the best job that's ever been done in Mississippi. I only regret the same sort of job has not been done in the governor's race. Now, the candidates that you are supporting, if you will put forth the effort, the local, union level, and the central body level, if you won't let them deceive you with false issues, if you'll talk about unemployment insurance, if you'll talk about workmen's compensation, the need for Department of Labor, the need for lower taxes, the need for improvement of the welfare of the people of Mississippi, if you'll talk about these issues, you can elect your candidates. We've got a lot of union people running for office. And sometimes there's a danger there. And I've seen it in campaigns in other states. Quite often a union member who runs for public office, who begins his campaign hitting the straight economic issues, begins to feel that he's going to win. And then the opposition sends somebody prominent in the business community, maybe the president of the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe the biggest businessman in town to him. And he says, John, oh boy, you're a good candidate even though you're off from organized labor. And we're going to support you and you're going to win this election. But you better quit going so hard on unemployment compensation. You know, there's some businessmen who don't like it. You got to get their votes too. You better ease up on unemployment insurance, because you got to get the votes from business too. And I don't know what it is about our old people that a pat on the back from a big businessman does to them. But it sure goes to the head. And they offer the campaign, and they are about to get elected, so they're going to soft pedal some of the economic issues. And they quit hitting so hard. And on election day, when the votes counted, we found that they missed. Sometimes by a few hundred votes. And then when we analyzed the boxes, we found they didn't carry the business boxes after all, even though they soft pedaled their economic issues. There's only one way that you can win. That's to stand up on the issues. To speak out. We've got to decide whether the world is flat or round. Thank you.
The real issues are. I certainly agree with you in its entirety. You ready? As you'll note on the printed agenda you have before you, the next order of business will be the report of your State Cope Committee in regards to your committee's recommendations for positions of candidates seeking statewide office. I think I should take just a few minutes and explain to you the procedure that will be followed. As Brother Powell has mentioned to you, we have a most complicated type of a situation confronting us here today. Your executive committee, your screening committee, and your executive board, along with the State Cope Committee, has spent hours and hours on this problem. And we have finally came up with what we think will take care of the situation to the best of our ability. We recognize the fact that we're not unanimous in this approach to the problem. We had quite a discussion in our meeting yesterday as to how to approach the problem we're faced as far as the governor and lieutenant governor elections were concerned. Now, the report is going to be a little bit complicated. It might be a little bit difficult for you to follow. Brother Knight will give the committee's report, and this is more or less the procedure that we will attempt to follow to the best of our ability. He will read to you the opening remarks of your committee, outline to you as we think most proper to conduct this election, where we can be most effective. We will then proceed to take up the committee's recommendations for the lesser statewide offices. We will act on those positions as we move along. Then we will stop the report and play back to the convention a tape we've prepared as a result of the committee's interview with the two gubernatorial candidates that appeared before your committee. The tape itself is approximately 42 to 45 minutes long. We selected 4 questions affecting our members, the members of our trade unions directly. We thought that this would probably be enlightening to you to compare the candidates' positions on these four specific areas. After you've heard the tape, Brother Knight will continue with the committee's report and place before you your committee's recommendations in regards to the governor's election and the lieutenant governor's election. At the end of his report, then he will offer a motion to adopt the committee's report in its entirety. At that point, the report then will be open for debate, will be open for amendment, for rejection, as however you see fit to handle the matter. I want to call this to your attention because the matter is a little bit difficult to follow. I'd like to ask you to refrain from asking for the floor until the report is completed. After the report is given, if there's any questions you have in regard to any part of the report, then at that time we would suggest that you raise the question and he could bring it back to your attention. Then, of course, as I've told you already, the report will be open for amendment or however you see fit. We have, sitting at the table up front here, the members of the screening committee. I should mention this to you. Brother Knight, Brother Taylor, Brother Schaefer, and Brother Gillespie, Sister Kelly, and myself. And our interviews with the candidates, we had at all times no less than 4 members of this committee present. I've asked them all to come forward in the event there's any questions raised when we have our period of discussion. If anything comes up that one of these committeemen might be able to help out, then we will ask them to come forward. Unfortunately, we have only one mic in the hall. They're not as well equipped here for conventions as a lot of places, but we are at least in a more friendly atmosphere. We'd like to think anyway. The mic is about middle ways of the hall down there. If you'll raise your hand and get recognition of the chairman and proceed to that mic, you will get proper recognition. So at this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you Brother Knight, who will give your committee's report. Brother Knight.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite your very serious attention as we present this report. The success of our form of government in large part can be attributed to the two-party system which is firmly established in all but a few states of our nation. The record clearly shows that issues and policies are more clearly defined in those states who have active Republican as well as Democratic parties. As we approach the statewide elections of 1963, the Labor Council is appreciative of the fact that a two-party system is fast becoming a reality in Mississippi, as candidates representing both major political parties are seeking several important offices this year. Among those positions which will be contested are the offices of governor and lieutenant governor. Simply stated, this development means that the governor and or the lieutenant governor's election will not be determined in the Democratic primary, but will instead be determined in the general election on November 5th. In view of the fact that the Mississippi AFL-CIO is a nonpartisan organization, this development indicates that the Labor Council should adopt new methods and procedures to cope with this desired change. Your Committee on Political Education is therefore making the following recommendation to this convention. Number 1, that the convention act on and make recommendations to the membership on only those state and district offices which will be determined in the Democratic primary. 2, that the membership be furnished pertinent information concerning answers to specific questions and previous record in public office secured by the screening committees of the state AFL-CIO and the AFL-CIO central bodies concerning all candidates seeking state and district office as well as those seeking positions in the legislature. 3, that the executive board of the state AFL-CIO be instructed to interview or attempt to interview the Republican and independent candidates seeking office at the state level prior to the general election on November 5th. 4, that prior to the general election, the Labor Council's Executive Board be authorized to make recommendations back to the membership by mail in those cases that warrant such action. It being understood that the Executive Board may deem it advisable to call a special convention to deal with this important matter. Now at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will present the findings of your committee in the statewide offices other than governor and lieutenant governor. And I might make this remark by way of explanation in addition to the previous read statement, that these answers were based on this evaluation sheet, which has 4 categories on it. 1, past record in public office. 2, answers to interview questions. 3, chances of election. 4, individuals or groups supporting and financing the candidate. All of this was taken into serious consideration before any recommendation was arrived at. For the office of State Land Commissioner, 2 gentlemen seek this office. The incumbent, Robert E. Bob Graham, and Andrew W. Sullivan of Macon, Mississippi. Your committee recommends the candidacy of Robert E. Bob Graham. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report, the motion to adopt to recommend the candidacy of Bob Graham for the position of Commissioner on Agriculture. We have any discussion? Land Commissioner, sorry. We have any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Mayor.
I'd like to say here, one of the ground rules of the committee was that in case the candidates for office did not respond to our questionnaire, did not extend you and the people which act as your spokesman the courtesy of answering the questionnaire, that candidate was not considered. The office of Insurance Commissioner, the incumbent Walter Dell Davis and David H. Stewart seek this office. Neither of these gentlemen had the time apparently to respond to our questionnaire. Therefore, the committee makes no recommendation. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report. Motion that we not make recommendation for the position of Insurance Commissioner. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered.
Next is the office of Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce, sought by 2 gentlemen, one Wyatt Carter of Vardaman, Mississippi, S.E. Cy Corley, the incumbent of Jackson. Neither of these gentlemen answered our questionnaire. Mr. Chairman, I move that we make no recommendations in this race.
You've heard the committee's report that no recommendations be made for the position of Commissioner on Agriculture. We have any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Good night.
Next is the office of Superintendent of Public Education. 3 gentlemen seek this office. E.B. Boyd Golding, former state auditor. A.L. Lonzo Lowry, superintendent of schools at Houston, Mississippi. And the incumbent J.M. Jack Tubb. Mr. Lowry or Mr. Golding, neither one answered our questionnaire. And of course, you probably know what the answer is going to be, but I would like to say this in connection with J.M. Jack Tubb. This is a true blue friend of the public school system of the state of Mississippi. It is a proven fact that Jack Tubb has refused to be pushed around by the demagogues of this state. Ladies and gentlemen, we recommend the re-election of J.M. Jack Tubb as State Superintendent of Education. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report and the motion to recommend the re-election of J.M. Jack Tubb to the position of Superintendent of Education in Mississippi. We have any discussion on that motion? I think it might be well, before the question's put, for me to also say to you that we consider Mr. Tubb as being one of the most responsible of our state public officials. Mr. Tubb has done an outstanding job. He will be a marked man in this election. It's going to take the efforts of all of us to see that he's returned to this office. You ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Another night.
The next office is that of Auditor of Public Accounts, sought by two gentlemen. First, W.H. Hamp King and Dewey Norton. We recommend the candidacy of W.H. Hamp King. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report and the recommendation to recommend Mr. Hamp King for the position of auditor. Do we have any discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered.
The next office is that of State Treasurer, sought by three gentlemen. Number one, B.G. Bob Jones of Jackson, Mississippi. Charles P. Mosby, Jr. of Meridian, Mississippi. And the present state tax collector who holds the office that will be abolished at the end of 1963. We will not have the office of state tax collector any longer, that being William F. Winter. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say this on this recommendation, that William Winter has shown beyond the shadow of a doubt that he is an outstanding public servant and dignified statesman in every sort. We recommend the election of William F. Winter to be State Treasurer. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report. The motion to recommend the election of Bill Winter to the position of State Treasurer. We have any discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. For the night.
The next office is that of Attorney General, sought by the incumbent Joe T. Patterson and the present state senator representing Smith and Rankin County, John C. McLaurin. Ladies and gentlemen, neither of these candidates answered our questionnaire. Both wrote President Ramsey a very short letter saying that, well, you know my record and my present position. I think this is enough. Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, one of the ground rules and the chief ground rule of the committee was that a candidate who did not respect the labor movement in Mississippi enough to answer the questionnaire, then certainly they are not considered. I'd like to make these brief remarks in connection with these two gentlemen. John McLaurin has voted fairly well on some issues in the state senate, yet and still John McLaurin is known to be connected with some of the rabble-rousing groups of this state, which we cannot go along with. On the other hand, Joe Patterson has never done anything for organized labor. Actually, we've never had an occasion to really test his friendliness to organized labor. Taking everything in consideration, ladies and gentlemen, your committee feels that it can make no recommendation in the race for Attorney General. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report. The motion that no recommendation be made for the position of Attorney General. Do we have any discussion?
Chairman, I'd like to say a word.
Brother Bruton.
I concur in what the committee recommends, and that neither one of these two men answered the questionnaire, which I think is a prime prerequisite. I would like to say this, though. Mr. Knight said that Mr. Patterson had never done anything for us. He's serving his second term in the Attorney General's office. And throughout that 8 years, up until last September, prime motivating factor of every speech that he made throughout the state of Mississippi was to bring in the gangsterism of trade unions headed by Walter Reuther. You've heard his talks, you've read the newspaper items of it, and he's never made a public utterance yet with what he has not injected some threat to the general public of the state of Mississippi by the trade union movement, using as a basis for that the factor that the majority of the people of the state do not like our national trade union leaders. Additional to that, in the latest case before the United States Supreme Court involving the question of the validity of a state right to work law in certain instances over the authority of the federal Constitution and the provisions of the Taft-Hartley law, he was not called on as an official of the state of Florida to be engaged in that litigation at all. But he filed what is known as a brief amicus curiae, known in our language as a friend to the court, in behalf of the government of the state of Mississippi, intervening on the side of the state of Florida, urging that the Supreme Court of the United States uphold the validity of the state supremacy over the provisions of the federal legislation. So I think that ought to be a factor that you convey to your people too.
Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Knight.
The next office to be considered is that of Secretary of State, sought by the incumbent Heber Ladner and W.L. McClure of Hattiesburg. Mr. McClure did not answer our questionnaire. Instead, he construed the questionnaire as an invitation to appear at this convention and replied that he would be unable to be here. Mr. Ladner did answer our questionnaire. Ladies and gentlemen, we recommend the candidacy of Heber Ladner for Secretary of State. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this recommendation.
You've heard the committee's report. The recommendation to support Heber Ladner for re-election to the position of Secretary of State. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Not all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. Brother Knight.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, in view of the fact that there's been considerable emphasis placed on the personal interview with the candidates for governor, we wish at this time to present a playback of portions of these interviews, specifically dealing with the establishment of a Department of Labor in Mississippi, workmen's compensation, unemployment insurance, and collective bargaining. The voice you will hear interviewing these gentlemen will be that of our distinguished President Claude Ramsey, and the first candidate is the gentleman from Clarksdale, Charles Sullivan. The next one will be former Governor J.P. Cole. And we hope that this tape can be heard in the back of the room. Immediately after the playback is begun, we hope you'll let us know if you're not hearing.
Convention will please be in order. Brother Knight will continue with the committee's report.
Four candidates are seeking the office, seeking the Democratic Party nomination for governor. Excuse me just a minute. I can get... They are as follows. James P. Coleman of Ackerman, former governor and presently serving as a member of the House of Representatives. Paul B. Johnson of Hattiesburg, presently serving as lieutenant governor. Robert Mason of McGee, a welder. And Charles Sullivan of Clarksdale, a former district attorney. Coleman and Johnson and Sullivan were invited to appear before your interviewing committee. Coleman and Sullivan met with the committee, but Johnson failed to appear. Mason qualified at the last minute after the committee had met with the other candidates. In view of the fact that he is not considered a serious candidate, and in view of the fact that he appeared before the committee 4 years ago, the committee did not deem it advisable to call a special meeting for his benefit. In evaluating these candidates' ability to attain, as well as to hold the position of governor, 4 major factors were considered. They are as follows: answers in position to written questions in the personal interview, previous experience and record of public office, group and financial support of the candidate, and the candidate's ability to win voter support. After seriously considering all these factors, your committee has placed these candidates in the following order: 1, James P. Coleman; 2, Charles Sullivan; 3, Paul Johnson; 4, Robert Mason. 5 candidates are seeking the Democratic Party nomination for lieutenant governor. They are as follows: Carol Garton of Laurel, former lieutenant governor; Miss Evelyn Gandy of Hattiesburg, presently serving as state treasurer; Reverend Dorsey McKay of Water Valley, a minister; David Perkins, a Jackson chiropractor; and Troy Watkins of Natchez, former mayor of that city. As in the case of all other candidates, your committee used the 4 previously mentioned factors in attempting to evaluate these candidates' ability to serve as well as attain this most important office. After seriously considering all of these factors, your committee has placed the candidates in the following order: number 1, Carol Garton; number 2, Evelyn Gandy; number 3, Troy Watkins; number 4, David Perkins; number 5, Dorsey McKay. Mr. President, I move the adoption of this report.
You've heard the committee's report. Motion is that the report be adopted. Are we having a discussion on the motion? Brother Ferguson, when you approach your mic, would you please give your name and the organization you represent?
Brother President and delegates, M.E. Ferguson, representing the CLU of Jackson, Mississippi. I would ask you to do this, if you're going to do it in the faction that y'all have recommended, to stay out of it entirely. I think you're doing the wrong thing unless you could do something about the election. And whenever you say number 1, number 2, and on down the line, I think you're making a mistake. That's my personal feeling about the thing, and I've seen things go and come in the last few years that I've been active in organized labor. And I believe, with my own feelings, that you're making a mistake if you number them like that and let the people and the public know that we didn't choose one, but saying number 1 and number 2 and on down the line. I think you're making a mistake there. And I would like, at this time, to make a substitute motion that we make no recommendation or endorsement for lieutenant governor or governor in the first primary.
Well, I'd like to call, brother, if you'll stand a minute, I'd like to call your attention to the fact that there has been no recommendation made for either office. We make an outline in the original part of the report. If the report's adopted as it is, that you will be selecting only candidates for offices that will be named in the Democratic primary. The committee felt that in view of the fact that the screening committee had interviewed all of these candidates, that it would be unfair to the delegates to this convention for them not to know what the findings of the committee was. That's the reason that this information has been placed before you in this fashion.
Well, let me ask
Now,
you.
if you would like to amend the committee's report, that you don't want anything at all to appear in the report, then a motion would be in order that segment of the report referring to the candidates for governor and lieutenant governor be eliminated.
Brother President, let me say this. I'm not thinking about what's happening here in the convention. I'm thinking about what's going to be in the paper.
Well, this is a
You
closed
see,
convention, Brother Ferguson.
I know that. I understand that. But it's going to get in the paper sooner or later. You know that. And what I would say is this, that we make no recommendations or suggestions as far as the governor and lieutenant governor is concerned.
Have you offered a motion to that effect?
I offer you a motion to that effect.
We have a second to that motion? You've got a motion before you now that the section of the report referring to the gubernatorial and the lieutenant governor candidates be stricken from the report. Do we have any discussion on that motion? Brother Smith.
I don't know about Red's motion here. You cannot stop the discussion. It's already been discussed. And it seems to me his motion is just simply saying that we shouldn't even be discussing it here in this meeting. So, I mean, that's the essence of the motion that I understand is on the floor. So we've discussed it already. You can't back that up. And what we've said, if it's going to get out, it's going to get out. And it's out already, as far as that. So, I think we should go along with our committee on their report. They've worked hard on this thing, and I think they've come up with a pretty fair answer. We're not supporting any one of them. So, as far as this discussion here, there's not supposed to be any newspaper men in here, and it's just us here, so I'm wholeheartedly with this committee. If we're going to have an executive committee and work on this thing as long as they've worked on it, I think we should back them.
We have any further discussion on the motion?
Brother Bruton?
Mr. Chairman and delegates, if this were an open meeting and an open endorsement of candidates, such as we had 4 years ago, I would urge you to support the motion of Brother Ferguson. As I stated yesterday, when the presidents and secretaries of central bodies were gathered here with the state executive officers in our deliberations yesterday, and in which we spent some 4 hours approximately arguing on this one thing. The result being finally resolved that this matter would be presented to you in the fashion in which it is now. I stated at that time that when we first organized our COPE organization, I asked a couple of questions in the convention. Would the day ever arise in which we could forget favorite son, relatives, some candidate for office whose wife was a great friend of ain't many, or somebody who had interceded to a congressman in my behalf or Uncle John's behalf or something of that nature that brought about some feeling of obligation to a particular candidate. And a day would ever arise in which we in Jackson and in Clarksdale and in Tupelo, in Natchez, in Gulfport, in Laurel, and all of the communities throughout this state wherein we reside, if we could do this, consider what are the bread and butter issues in a campaign, what candidates would best serve our purpose, would best help us to accomplish our aims and objectives, and then be able to guarantee a candidate our full support of every labor vote that we could influence in the state of Mississippi to support a candidate and endorse them. I stated then that I doubted that we would ever get to that point. I don't think we are now. 4 years ago, I didn't think we were. 4 years ago, I objected to the public endorsement which was made, but rather stated that I certainly thought the delegates assembled should be presented the information such as has been done here today, with the manner of grading those candidates being presented, and you knowing which one your elected officers graded as number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 as being the best for our aims and objectives. Then, you have the free exercise of your right to disregard the evaluation which has been made and vote for number 4 if you want to. That's your right and your privilege. No one is attempting to dictate in this manner and in this procedure which is being outlined to you and which is being recommended to you by the meeting of yesterday, but rather you're going to be obligated at the close of this meeting if you take this report and go back and inform your membership as to why the recommendation was made in this fashion and why the candidates were graded in this manner. And unless you go back and present it in that manner, then you have no business being here because you were sent here to perform a service to your members, and if you fail to do it, then you have not performed that service. Why should your membership not be advised of the 4 points that were taken into account to grade these various candidates? You're not telling him that he must vote for number 1. Give him the information and then let him use his own best judgment. And that's all you're being asked to do here today. And in view of that being the whole objective, I urge you to vote against this motion.
Cook, get you next. Get back there by the mic. Tell him to get that. State your name, Brother Cook, organization.
L.I. Cook, Vicksburg, CLU. Mr. Chairman, the issue has become quite confusing to me. It seems like that I might be fixing to perform something that's customary for me to perform at our activities, and that's to make a correction to our procedure here. It seems to me that we had one motion on the floor by the chairman of the committee to adopt what the committee has placed before us, and now we have violated one of our rules by permitting another motion to be made. I call the maker of the second motion out of order.
Brother Cook, the motion before the House is to adopt the committee's report, which means that that motion is subject to amendment, rejection, or what have you. The motion is in order, and I so rule that the motion itself is in order. It's Brother Ferguson's motion, the motion he made. He questioned the ruling of the chair in regards to the motion being in order. I said the motion was in order, that the matter before the House was subject to amendment.
Well, if he had stated amendment in his motion, then I wouldn't have said what I said, but he placed a new motion on the floor. I'm not familiar with a substitute system.
Well, let me clarify the situation. I made an inquiry of Brother Ferguson in regards to his substitute motion, if you recall, made mention of the fact that the motion was subject to amendment. I assumed that he offered his motion as an amendment to the report. That's the reason I ruled it in order. Now, if he's offering a substitute motion, then I agree that his motion is out of order. I'll have to make an inquiry of Brother Ferguson. What was your motion, Brother Ferguson?
Brother Chairman, I offered both.
I know you did to start with. It was my understanding, though, that you...
No, Brother Ramsey, the first offer that I made was a substitute motion. You said that probably wouldn't be in order. Then I made a motion that we not recommend anybody in the first primary for lieutenant governor or governor. Now, if you're going to get down technically with this thing, somebody might as well get out the book, because I know what I'm talking about. You can make a substitute motion if you want to. You can amend a motion if you want to.
Well, it
Now,
was my understanding that you offered an amendment.
I did. I offered it as amendment. First, that we do not, and I'm offering it now again, that we do not endorse or recommend any candidate for lieutenant governor or governor in the August primary.
I can't accept that motion in that nature, Brother Ferguson. I will accept an amendment, a motion to amend the committee's report to that effect.
That's what I'm trying to do, is amend it to that effect, that we do not.
We're not making, let's state the facts clear now on what the subject before the House is. There's no recommendation being made for the position of governor or lieutenant governor.
That's right.
Including into the report is the findings of the committee. That's all. If your desire here is to strike from the report that portion of the report dealing with this subject, then a motion in that direction is in order to amend the report. Otherwise, I can't accept the motion as you've outlined.
Well, let me say this to you. You did accept it a while ago because
It was
you
my
let it be
understanding
discussed.
that you offered it as an amendment.
That's right, I did. After you said that I couldn't make a substitute motion.
Well, what is your motion at this time?
I offer you an amendment to the motion that Knight made, that we do not make any recommendation to the people for lieutenant governor or governor.
Well, in that case, I have to rule your motion out of order, Brother Ferguson, because it's not germane to the committee's report. There's been no recommendation made. Therefore, I will definitely have to rule your present
All
motion
right,
out of order.
read the motion he made to me,
Which one?
the one Knight made.
Brother Knight moved that the committee's report be adopted.
That's right.
And in that report was the section dealing with the committee's findings in regards to candidates for governor and lieutenant governor.
That's right. And I
There
moved.
was no recommendations made, merely the findings of the committee. I've got to rule your motion out of order, Red. Now, if you want to offer someone else,
No.
if you want to appeal to the convention, you've got that right.
No, that's not my intentions, Ramsey. The only thing that I would like to do, I don't like the idea of, in other words, I thought you wanted to have a motion before you discuss it. I don't like the idea of naming them 1, 2, and 3, and 4. That's the thing that I don't like about it. Now, I don't know if I can make you a motion or anything that'll clarify it.
Well,
But I don't.
Let me say this, Red. Your complete discussion is out of order, and I'm going to have to rule you out of order.
Well, that's fine.
I've already tried to be as clear as I can on the matter, what the appropriate motion is. If you don't want this done, if you don't want to name 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you can amend the report in that fashion. But I can't accept the motion that you presented here at this time, and I'm also going to have to request that you give up the floor unless you do come up with a
Brother
germane
Chairman,
motion.
I offer you a motion that we reject the recommendation by the executive board.
Now, is that the second part or all of it?
That's all of it, including the governor and lieutenant governor.
The complete report?
No,
The section of the report?
from about the lieutenant governor and governor.
All right,
That
let's
we
see if we can
reject?
make clear. Your motion is that the report be amended, striking from that report any mention of the gubernatorial and the lieutenant
That's
governor
right.
candidate.
That's
Is that
right.
your motion?
Would you accept that?
I'll accept that motion.
All right.
All right, I promised this gentleman sitting here, right here, just a minute, Brother Hopkins. I told him I'd let him have the floor next. Do you want it, Brother Hopkins? We did have a second to that motion, did we not? Me determine that first. Did we have a second to Red's motion to amend the report?
I'll second.
He did have a second. Okay, Brother Hopkins, will you move back to the mic and state your name and your local?
My name is Cyril P. Hopkins, local 436, pipe fitters and plumbers, Pascagoula, Mississippi. Sir? Can't hear me?
You're a little bit too close. You're a little bit too close to the mic.
When I first raised my hand, I just wanted to say that the man's I first raised my hand, I wanted to say that the man's motion was out of order because there was no clause for a motion. We already had a motion on the floor. As far as an amendment, I agree with the man who spoke a minute ago and said that we're up here representing a group of people. Each one of us represent a different group. And if we can't bring back the findings to our locals, then we're not doing the job we were sent up here to do. And I think the findings of the committee should be presented in this hall. The fact that it's a closed meeting, it's not supposed to get out the hall. I don't see how a man could get up here and imagine it's going to get in the newspaper.
Gentleman in the back with his hand up.
Brother Chairman.
State your name and local, please.
Earl Wright, Aluminum Workers International, Local 245 of Gulfport, Mississippi. A few minutes ago, or a while ago, we had a very fine speech from a gentleman named Mr. Powell, I believe. And from the applause that Mr. Powell got, I take it that every man and everyone in this room appreciated the speech that he gave. Now, in his speech, he stated that the candidates for governor of Mississippi did not want organized labor to come right out and say, we are supporting you, because organized labor in Mississippi was not at a standing point. They were not together. They were not organized enough to do that. Am I right? Did he make that statement? Well, if up to now we are not at that point, and he went on to state that we've got to decide, is the world round or is it square?
Flat, I believe it's right.
Flat. He went on to state that we've got to get together, we've got to make decisions. If this is so, then I say today is the day that we've got to make decisions, and I say it is my personal opinion that we have got to choose and select a man for the governor of Mississippi. Now, I don't mean to say that we're going to jump on former Governor Coleman and say we're going to support him, because if we do, that's going to give the other two candidates the right privilege to go out and say, well, organized labor is backing him 100%. They will go to the Chamber of Commerce and the Mississippi Manufacturers Association, which will, in my opinion, harm Governor Coleman. But I do say that if we're going to move forward and take a stand as a organized group in Mississippi, today is the time to do it, and we need to decide on who we want and discuss it amongst ourselves. Thank you.
Any further discussion? The motion before the House is to strike from the committee's report that section dealing with the governor and the lieutenant governor.
Mr. Chairman.
Brother Bruton?
On this motion.
Yes, Brother Bruton.
I believe this is a different motion, though.
It was in a little different order. He's allowed twice
This is a new motion. The other one was declared out of order. When I spoke before, I was traveling upon the assumption that we all understood the language of the committee's report, which stated that there would be no recommendation made of support to any candidate, which election would not be decided in the August primaries. There being a Republican candidate for governor and a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor, those two statewide elections cannot be decided until November. Therefore, there can be no public endorsement or public recommendation, not even to our membership with regard to those particular offices, until after the Democratic nominee who will represent the Democratic Party is elected in office.
The only thing which the committee has done is to give its findings, the manner in which the candidates were graded, and for you to carry that back to your membership, so that they might then use their discretion in determining in August who is going to represent the Democratic Party in the general election in November. Therefore, the only thing which could be objected to would be the findings of the committee. And that was the manner in which I addressed the prior motion by Brother Ferguson, was that I took his motion to mean that he wanted to strike the findings of the committee. And that's what I urged you to vote against. There is nothing here recommending anybody. There is nothing here endorsing anybody. And under the report which you have under consideration, and which he's asking you to strike, there can be no endorsement until the two candidates whose names will appear on the ballot in November are determined. So, if we're going to strike this part of the report and deprive your membership of the facts and the findings which has been made by this board, then I think we ought to dissolve this body and never have another COPE organization and another COPE meeting in the state of Mississippi. We're dragging our feet, we're spending money, we're defrauding our membership. And I urge you to defeat the motion.
Thank you, Brother Bruton. Do we have any further discussion? See, Brother Stewart wants the floor.
W.M. Stewart from the Law and Labor Council. I would like to say that this committee has spent a good deal of time discussing with these candidates, finding their qualifications. So I urge you, along with Claude, to take the action here that this committee is recommending and defeat this motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Question's been called for. Are you ready for the question? Ready. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. What is the question? What is the motion? The motion before the House is to amend the report, striking from that report any reference to the candidates for governor and lieutenant governor. That's a motion to amend. This motion fails and the report will be still before the House. Matter of fact, either way, it'll still be before the House. Is it clear what the motion is? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Any of the chair that the motions fail? Motions fail and so ordered. The report now is still before the House, as it was submitted by the chairman of the committee. We have any further discussion on the committee's report?
I move the previous question.
Previous question's been called for. Do we have a second to that motion? That motion's not debatable. I want it clearly understood. Now, if this motion's adopted, it closes debate. We will then proceed to vote on the committee's report and the committee's motion to adopt that report. We will have it reread if you'd like. Would you like to have it reread? What you want is the original part, don't you?
The original, in other words, the motion that is being adopted, the report that would be subject to this motion.
Yes, with the convention would like, and I think probably it would be a good idea at this time to read the report in its entirety, because, and then we'll leave out the part of the candidates that have been selected, of course, and read only the beginning and the end of the report. That's what you actually want, is it not? Yeah. All right, if the convention would like, I'll ask the chairman to read that to you before you vote on this motion to close debate. Okay, Brother Thumb? No objection? Okay. Yes, read this. We're going to read all of the report, beginning at the very beginning, and then the section dealing with the findings of the committee. That's what you want, is it not? Okay. Well, yes, the entire part. Sorry. Well, I thought thought it was understood, we're not going to go into these candidates that have already been adopted. See, we had these lesser state officers. You've adopted those already. They become a part of this report now. We're going to only read to you the opening statement of that report and the section dealing with the findings of the committee in regards to these two positions.
Mr. Chairman, that's the purpose of as you read. What is subject to this motion?
All right.
4 candidates are seeking the Democratic Party nomination for governor. They are as follows: James P. Coleman of Ackerman, former governor and presently serving as a member of the House of Representatives. Paul B. Johnson of Hattiesburg, presently serving as lieutenant governor. Robert Mason of McGee, a welder. Charles Sullivan of Clarksdale, a former district attorney. Coleman, Johnson, and Sullivan were invited to appear before your interviewing committee. Coleman and Sullivan met with the committee, but Johnson failed to appear. Mason qualified at the last minute after the committee had met with the other candidates. In view of the fact that he is not considered a serious candidate, and in view of the fact that he appeared before the committee 4 years ago, the committee did not deem it advisable to call a special meeting for his benefit. In evaluating these candidates' ability to attain as well as to hold the position of governor, 4 major factors were considered. They are as follows: answers and position to written questions in the personal interview, previous experience and record of public office, group and financial support of the candidate, and the candidate's ability to win voter support. After seriously considering all these factors, your committee has placed these candidates in the following order: 1, J.P. Coleman; 2, Charles Sullivan; 3, Paul Johnson; 4, Robert Mason. 5 candidates are seeking the Democratic Party nomination for lieutenant governor. They are as follows: Carol Garton of Laurel, former lieutenant governor. Miss Evelyn Gandy of Hattiesburg, presently serving as state treasurer. The Reverend Dorsey McKee of Water Valley, minister. David Perkins of Jackson, a chiropractor. And Troy Watkins of Natchez, former mayor of that city. As in the case of all other candidates, your committee used the 4 previously named factors in attempting to evaluate these candidates' ability to serve as well as attain this most important office. After seriously considering all these factors, your committee has placed the candidates in the following order: 1, Carol Garton; 2, Evelyn Gandy; 3, Troy Watkins; 4, David Perkins; 5, Dorsey McKee.
Did you want the rest of the other part, or just that part? Just that part? All right, I now will accept your motion for the previous question. I believe we did have a second, which means that we've closed debate off if this motion's adopted. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by the same sign. No. The opinion of the chair that the motion has passed. We will now proceed to put the question that's before the House. The motion is to adopt the committee's report. All in favor of that motion signified by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Opinion of the chair that the motion has passed. That completes your committee's report. We have a couple other small items. Brother Edwards.
Mr. Chairman, I'm E.B. Edwards, President Local 3517, Communication Workers of America, Tupelo, Mississippi. I would like to place the following motion before this body, and if I get a second, I'd like an opportunity to speak on it. I move that this body give our President and the Executive Committee the authority to meet with the press at the conclusion of this convention for the purpose of extending to them any information or making a statement regarding the action of this convention as they deem it to be important to the people of the state of Mississippi.
We have a second to that motion? Before you speak on the motion, Brother Edwards, and you shall have the floor, I think I should make this statement to you. The motion was adopted yesterday by the State Cope Committee that no statements be issued. Now, if it's the desires of this convention to adopt a motion in this fashion, then of course it will supersede any action on the part of the State Cope Committee. I thought I should mention that fact. Brother Edwards.
Mr. Chairman, fellow delegates, as the President has said, the action that was taken yesterday certainly ties the hands of the Executive Committee and the President of this body to the extent that at the conclusion of this convention, the body will send out in letter form to the membership, your membership and mine, the actions of this body. Then any member of your local or mine can call a press conference and give that information to the press at their will. There was no action taken yesterday that would prevent any member from doing just that. By the time the information gets to the member and the member gets to the press, then it's about third hand. So any statement, microphone off.
I don't believe you.
Any statement that might be.
Somebody got to put on that cord on the floor. That's what it is, probably standing on the floor.
I'm not touching.
One on the floor down here. Not underneath. I know you don't have a connection on that. You got it now?
I think so.
Yes, I believe you got it.
Any statement that might be made by anyone in this room, and time it's passed 3 or 4 times down to his neighbor, and you ask what the 4th or 5th neighbor received out as to what the original statement was, I'm pretty sure that you would not have a correct statement as to the original. So it is my purpose here in this motion to get to the press and the people of the state of Mississippi the exact, true functions and actions of this body. And I would urge that you pass this motion. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion on the motion? You ready for the question? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed? No. Depending on the chair that the motion passed, maybe I should put it again. I don't think everyone voted in this thing. Let's try it by voice vote one more time. All in favor of the motion signified by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? No. Depending to the chair, the motion has been adopted. Need a division of the House? I don't think there's any question about it passing. This pretty well completes the business of the convention. We do have another matter or two that I would like to call to your attention, however. We have been necessary for us to elect a couple of new board members since our last convention. The executive board has filled 2 vacancies. I would like to introduce those 2 people to you in order that you might know them. Brother Russell Mike Meehan of the Lady Garment Workers Union. Where's he at? Back in the back. Sister Marguerite Hicks from Meridian with the Woodworkers International Union. An oversight on my part. I'm sorry. I should have introduced these people to you already. Brother Knight, do you have any other announcements to make? Now, I want to ask the members of the executive. Brother McGee, you have an announcement?
Fred McGee from the Local 3518 Communication Workers of America. Ladies and gentlemen, we have two people that belong to our organization that are running for state representatives. These young men are men that we have great respect for and who we are backing 100%. Our opposition evidently are backing some of their opponents, and these boys need some of that stuff called cabbage. We got 3 baskets. We know we're not in church, but we're going to pass these down the tables. And any of you who feel like contributing to these boys' campaigns, any monies would be greatly appreciated from them and their families, because we certainly do not want to see them or their families suffer during this campaign. So if you people will dig deep and give heartily, we will greatly appreciate it. They are Ray Smith from Macomb, Mississippi, and Jim Clark from Laurel, Mississippi.
Brother McGee, let me offer you a suggestion. Rather than hold up the convention to pass this around, if you'd like to stand out there at the door as they come out, if they'd like to make a contribution, I believe this would be the most appropriate thing to do, because if we start passing the hat in here, then there's going to be 1 or 2 other people who like to do the same thing, because I know, as a matter of fact, we have several other people in that same category. Don't misunderstand me. I know what your objectives are, and they are good. And certainly these boys can use some help. I know this is a matter of fact. So if you'll just get your hat and stand out there for an adjournment. Now, we're not quite ready to adjourn. Brother Stewart would like to address the convention in just a minute.
I would just like to say, on behalf of the Laurel Labor Council, we are proud that you chose this city to come to, and we hope that this won't be the last time you come to see us. Don't wait for a convention to come back to it. The local council meets the second Tuesday night in each month. We'd be glad to have you as a guest at that meeting at any time. And we do hope that you see fit to choose this side as in a future convention. Thank you.
Certainly, I thank each and every one of us. I've enjoyed the hospitality of the Central Labor Union here in Jones County. I know, as a matter of fact, that we were welcome here. Now, before we adjourn, I want to ask the executive board members to meet me, immediately upon adjournment here at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just taken some important action in this convention in behalf of the working people of this state. Mention has been made here today in regards to the work of some of our central bodies in connection with the legislative position. I want to emphasize as strongly as possible the importance and the need of each of you going back into your community and doing your utmost to help elect friendly people to the Mississippi legislature. If you are not active in your central body, if you do not have a central body in your district, in other words, if there's not a local union available for you, I want you to contact us. Let us help you screen some candidates in your particular county. Thinking about places like Lafayette County and places of this kind. It's an absolute necessity that we elect people friendly to our cause in this election. The Manufacturers Association and the Mississippi Economic Council, as I pointed out to you this morning, already have their sights on more damaging legislation. And it doesn't make much difference who you elect governor. If you elect another legislature similar to the one that we have now, this onslaught is going to continue, and you can expect the worst. The key of the whole thing is electing people at the local level to the Mississippi legislature. And I want to strongly urge each and every one of you to become as active as possible in this field and support those candidates that have been recommended by your central body, and in some cases by local unions and isolated areas. It's been a real pleasure to have had all of you here today. You've been a very good, attentive delegation. I want to compliment you on the manner in which you've conducted yourself here today. I felt yesterday that this convention would probably drag on into the night. But you have completed the business at hand, pretty well on schedule. I was in hopes that we'd be able to adjourn by 4. It's only 4:15, so you have done an excellent job. Godspeed to all of you on your way home. Good luck to all of you. Thank you so much.